Hi, you guys. Your favorite storyteller here. It's Candy. What's going on? Well, I wanted to come on here today, and we're going to be doing a case today. Yeah, I'm calling them cases now, I guess. On Joe the Cannibal Metheny, a.k.a. the Hamburger Killer. Now, Joseph Roy Metheny was born on March 2nd, 1955, to Gene Metheny and his father, whose name I cannot locate for some reason. The family grew up in the North Point Boulevard area of Essex, Maryland. Joe had a relatively normal upbringing. The family was considered poor, but mom and dad were hardworking and tried to be sure that all six of their kids had things. Yes, I said six. Mama and Papa was some rabbits, basically. Now, Dad worked long hours in a car factory while Mom was a stay-at-home mom. Now, they all lived in a small apartment and struggled to make ends meet at times, but were all very close-knit and supportive of one another. That's good. Now, Joe was the eldest of the six children, so that meant he sometimes had to be in charge taking care of his siblings, which the eldest usually is. Now, the family always tried to maintain a happy and healthy environment, but when their father passed away in a car accident when Joe was just 6 years old, this left Mom to now have to go out and get a job. The family did fall deeper into hardships after that because, they had a one-income household already, but I guess Dad was making more money, and, now Mom, probably couldn't make as much, because it was in the 50s, 60s, women weren't really getting no money like that. All the men was getting all the money, even though things were a little cheaper. They probably weren't trying to pay him nothing. Now, I do have to let you all know that it wasn't uncommon for Joe's dad to drink, okay? He was considered an alcoholic, but this was a turning point in his life because his mom had trouble providing for the family. She did do a number of jobs, but wound up taking up alcohol as a coping mechanism as well. So basically, just like Joe's dad did, she became an alcoholic too. It left Joe to have to grow up faster by stepping up and becoming the family's primary caregiver at this point. You know what I mean? Two alcoholic parents. Nah, he the eldest, so he got to take care of everybody. Too much for one little kid, I'm telling you. Now, Joe was an above average student, always polite, never mean. But after years of, going through the struggle, dealing with, alcoholic parents, two of them, one dead now, but the other one, she picked it up. So now she going through the same probably mean things, talking trash to the kids, hitting the kids. You never know what an alcoholic could do behind closed door. So Joe decided to leave school when he was just 14 years old to just go ahead and just fully support the rest of the kids, the family, because the mama probably might have been like not showing up to work. She probably was messing up too, doing that, messing up their money. He also took up odd jobs and worked tirelessly to keep the family afloat. Like I said, that responsibility, though, started to take a toll on him. And y'all already knew it was because he was young. You know what I mean? He about to start acting out. The stress of the entire situation is enough to make anybody lose their marbles, really, if y'all think about it. And y'all know I'm right, too. Well, Joe started hanging with the wrong crowd, engaging in petty crimes, and found himself in a juvenile detention center. And I'm guessing y'all probably figured that out. All that stress and trouble and everything that he enduring, from two alcoholic parents. Now he got to be the sole breadwinner at 14. Y'all knew he was going to go down a bad path. Y'all saw it coming. I did. Now, after he was released, he seemed to go ahead and just get back on track. I guess, he was like, okay, I can't be doing this. I'm going to jail. Now, he did get a steady job at a pallet factory and pretty much stayed away from any criminal activity. But things were about to take a dark turn. He developed an addiction to alcohol, just like his mother and father. But he took it a step further. He got on drugs too. His excessive consumption of these substances brought out the worst in him, changing him both mentally and physically. Probably was scaring the mess out of the rest of them kids. They probably was like, geez. So he joined the Army in 1973 when he was 19 years old. His mom said he served in Germany, but Joe says he did a tour in Vietnam. That's a little sketchy on that one. Both of them was drunk, so they didn't know. While there, he says he became addicted to heroin while in the artillery unit. Jeez. Now, Joe seldom kept in contact with his mother after he joined the Army. They pretty much lost touch. probably because he didn't want to talk to her because, he doing the same thing that her and the mom did. Her and the mom, the daddy did. Now, upon leaving the army, Joe worked blue-collar jobs in lumber yards and as a truck driver. Joe was nicknamed Tiny in the 1990s, even though he was large-framed and overweight. He spent a lot of time in bars, living with bands of homeless men in makeshift camps in South Baltimore, and spending nearly all of his money on crack, cocaine, heroin, and liquor. Wow. He was having a party, huh? Despite all of that, he did hold down a steady job as a forklift driver and was described as intelligent, well-spoken, and well-mannered. Basically, a functioning crackhead, you guys. Now, in 1994, Joe was now living with his girlfriend and their 6-year-old son. So, yeah, he had a kid. He was a truck driver again, and he was on the road for long stints at a time. Now, one day, he came home to find his girlfriend gone, along with their child. Now, just so you all know, his girlfriend was a drug addict as well. Joe little crazy self believes she left him to be with another man. So he flew into a fit of rage and spent days looking for her, checking halfway houses and even under certain bridges where he knew she would go and buy and do her drugs at. Now, he saw 2 homeless men under one of the bridges one day, and I guess he knew them. Or she knew them or something. And he believed that they knew exactly where she was. Now, remember, I told you guys that he is in a fit of rage and probably high out of his mind at this point, because he had to do something to numb himself because he mad because she left, right? Now, when the men gave him no indication that they knew where, his family was, he took out an axe from his vehicle and killed both of them. He said, y'all lying to me. Y'all know exactly where she at. Stop playing with me, right? I just hope they fought for their lives because I know I would have, right? Now peep this, y'all. As Joe was looking around to see if anyone saw anything, he noticed a fisherman and killed him just in case. Crazy, right? Once he got out of that angry state, he was blinded by, and he realized what he had done. He panicked and tossed the bodies into the river to hide the evidence. I'm sure you all can tell that he was known to have volatile mood swings and bouts of violent behavior. Because he was on drugs and alcohol. Hard stuff, right? He would soon find himself on the run from the law. Y'all know that? Because he was sloppy. Like, first of all, you just killing people out in the open. Okay. Now, police arrested Joe due to some crimes he committed. It was unrelated. And they also charged him with the murders of the 2 men under the bridge. Now, how did they find that out? I bet y'all thinking somebody else must have been there, right? And snitched. So he spent a year and a half in the county jail awaiting trial. However, he was acquitted of the charges because they couldn't find the body. So he went free. So I guess the other person that he never even noticed was there didn't have, it was just he say, she say. It wasn't like a strong case, you know what I mean? So he resumed his original quest of looking for his family. He found out that his girlfriend had moved on, and she moved to the other side of town with another guy. And the guy had her prostituting herself for drugs, right? It wasn't too far-fetched because she was already probably doing that for herself. Now, her and the guy got busted, and they took away Joe's son for child neglect and child abuse. Oh, that poor child. Joe wouldn't find this out until later, another 6 months down the line. But that child probably had already been experiencing stuff like that, I have to say, because of her and him were already on drugs, Something was different with Joe when he was released. He didn't slow down at all, y'all. He murdered 2 sex workers when they failed to provide him with information on his missing girlfriend. He basically snapped at this point. That was like the nail that hit the coffin or whatever that saying is. When he found out that, she really did move on, that was it. He was already crazy. So that was like the thing that pushed him to the breaking point, Now, this time, though, he had a better idea of how to dispose of the bodies. Instead of tossing them in the river like he did the other ones, he took them home and dismembered their corpses carefully, separating the flesh from the bone. He then stored the meatiest parts in his freezer and buried the remains he couldn't use at a truck lot owned by the pallet company that he had worked for before. I guess he knew because it was abandoned pretty much, he could dump the bodies there. It seemed he was not murdering people for sport. Over the next several weekends, he embarked on the most grotesque schemes imaginable, y'all. He mixed the human flesh that he had stored with some ground pork and beef to create hamburger patties, which he cooked and sold from a roadside barbecue stand that he opened on the side of the road, right? All of the customers would consume bits of human flesh. They became unwittingly hiding spots for the bodies of his victims. No one ever suspected anything or that the meat tasted any different. Crazy, right? Whenever Joe needed more special meat, he would simply venture out, find a sex worker or a vagabond. Over the next few years, though, Joe continued to lure victims to his home to murder them. I guess he said, let me get y'all to my house now, so it's in the quiet. He would then use their remains in his twisted barbecue business. Now, according to his confession, he killed at least 13 people during this time. But authorities believe the actual number could be higher. And it really could be, because y'all know he was high and drunk out of his mind and off his rocker at this point. So he probably couldn't even remember how many people he killed for that barbecue business. Now, here is a list of his victims, the ones that they, could match with him. Kathy Ann Magaziner, a 39-year-old woman whose body was buried in a shallow grave on the site of the fact where he had worked at. Because remember, that's where he was dumping the bodies at. Now, the body was there for more than 2 years before it was found. He said that in 1994, he strangled her and then dug up her skeleton 6 months later, put her head in a box, and then threw it in the trash. Why? You know what I mean? She was already in there. Now, Randall Brewer and Randy Piker, allegedly in 1995, they were killed with an axe at a homeless tent city campsite under the Hanover Street Bridge. There had been disputes over rival groups of homeless men, and Larry Amos was convicted of stealing the murder weapon and using it to kill Everett Dowell, another homeless man. Now, the bodies were discovered on August 2nd, 1995, the same day that Dowell was killed. Amos was arrested and accused of first-degree murder and pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. He was released after serving 1 year and 9 months of the 8-year sentence. A jury concluded in July of 1996 that there was insufficient evidence to convict Joe of murdering Brewer and Pike, but he later said that he was guilty of those murders. Now, I'm guessing these are two men who must have been under the bridge, y'all. That was crazy, right? But how in the world the other man, he only got a year, and then he only got 8 years sentence, though? So you mean to tell me that somebody could kill someone back in those days, only get less than 10 years of a sentence, only serve about 1 to 2, 3 years or something of that sentence and be let out? See, that's exactly why they had serial killers back in those days, because nobody was really getting punished. Like, really, police? That's why I say the police was horrible back then. Because these people nowadays, in the days and times we're in, baby, they gonna get life. Baby, they gonna get 20 to 30 years of life. Baby, they probably gonna get 3 times of a life sentence. Okay? But back then, baby, you kill somebody and get less than 10 years and be out. Way before then. That's crazy, right? Anywho, so the next victim was Kimberly Lynn Spicer, and she was killed in mid-November 1996. She was stabbed with a knife. Joe kidnapped Rita Kemper on December 8th, 1996, and attempted to rape her. According to prosecutors, he shared drugs with her, Kemper, in the trailer where he was living at the pallet factory site. Oh, so basically, he was living on the pallet factory site, not just working there. And that's why he was dumping the people in his own yard. Crazy. He wanted to be caught. Okay. So she refused to have sex with him and ran out of the trailer. So he got mad. He chased her down and beat her, dragged her back into the trailer, pulled down her pants, and attempted to rape her. Kemper said he had attempted to murder her, saying, "I'm going to kill you and bury you in the woods with the other girls," end quote. She was able to escape through a window of the trailer and fled to the police officers in the area. Joe then asked a friend to help him bury the body of Spicer, which he had been hiding at the factory site since killing her a month early. Now, the friend reported it to the police on December 15, 1996, and Joe was arrested and charged with her murder the same day. Now, why would Joe bring anybody into this if you out here being a serial killer? That was just dumb on his part. The owner of the business was arrested with Joe as they left a Christmas party and was charged as an accessory after the fact for allegedly disposing of evidence. Now, why was the owner arrested, right? Why? Because he let Joe live on the property? I don't know. That's dumb. Could have been something else, though. Now, Joe began confessing to other murders as well as that of Spicer. He led police to the shallow grave where he had reburied Magaziner's decapitated remains. Much of the skull was missing, but the police were able to identify Magaziner from dental records. Police feel that Joe was choosing young white sex workers who were addicted to heroin and cocaine. I guess it was easier. The killings also involved brutal sexual assault, and I think he was doing that, because the girlfriend left him, right? So this is all going back to the woman that left him. He was indicted for killing Tony Lynn Ingracia, probably butchered that name, but those charges were later dropped for lack of evidence. Joe also claimed to have killed 3 other prostitutes along Washington Boulevard in Baltimore, although there was no evidence of most of those crimes other than his confession. Joe stated he threw all the bodies in the Patapsco, probably butchered that name also, river, and they had never been found. They probably won't be found. His attorney said that he was remorseful and that drugs and alcohol had changed his personality and made him very violent. Yeah. He was tried in 1997 in the Kemper case and given a sentence of 50 years for kidnapping and attempted sexual assault. He was acquitted of attempting to murder her. He then was sentenced to death in 1996 for the murder of Spicer. At his sentence hearing, he told them that he committed murders because he enjoyed it and he got a rush out of it, a high, and that he had no real excuse why other than he liked to do it. So how is he remorseful, attorney, huh? That man did what he did and enjoyed it and would do it again. He stated it himself. So let's back up a little bit. When he was arrested on December of 1996, police thought they would have a fight on their hands, due to his size, as well as his apparent tendency to fly off the handle. Because y'all know that fool was crazy. But what he actually did was shocking to them. He proudly gave a detailed and upfront confession of the brutality he caused, and then he stated, "I'm a very sick person," end quote. He told them that all of the rapes, murders, and dismembering he did was merely a substitute for his one intended victim, his runaway girlfriend. Ain't I said that, y'all? I said that, right? I called it. Okay. Now, at his trial, he told everybody the words "I'm sorry" will never come out, for they would be a lie. I am more willing to give up my life for what I have done, to have God judge me and send me to hell for eternity. I just enjoyed it. The only thing I feel bad about in any of this is I didn't get to murder the 2 MFers I really was at, my ex-old lady and the bastard she hooked up with, end quote. Woo! What a man, right? Crazy. Now, at this point, I'm thinking he just like, whatever, I got caught. The little woman ran off. He called a little B word, though. She got away. She snitched on me. Ain't no sense me sitting up here fighting them. I'm going to just go ahead and admit, yeah, I did it. I enjoy it. I'm a serial killer. It is what it is, In August of 1998, let's get back to it, y'all. He pleaded guilty to murdering and robbing Magaziner, and prosecutors sought the death penalty in that case as well. He received a sentence of life in prison in that case. Now, a judge overturned that verdict, though, in the year 2000, and the sentence for the murder of Spicer was reduced to life without parole, 2 consecutive life sentences. The rationale for the death penalty was that the murder had been committed in committing a robbery. What? But the evidence indicated that robbery was not his motivation. Is that? So how could they say, okay, we're going to overturn this in the year 2000 on the premise of the fact that this was a murder that happened while he was trying to rob her? That wasn't what was going on. He wanted to kill her. He was trying to rape her. Okay, crazy. Now, even behind bars, Joe remained unrepentant, recounting his crimes with a disturbing detachment. He offered a dark warning to the public. This is what he said, y'all. The next time you're riding down the road and you happen to see an open pit beef stand that you've never seen before, make sure you think about this story before you take a bite of that sandwich. Basically telling y'all, yeah, y'all all was helping me get rid of this evidence unbeknownst to y'all. And because y'all seen something on the side of the road that you wanted, you stopped anyways. Now, he basically was calling everybody stupid, right? Because think about it. Do y'all know how many roadside stands y'all pass by? How many hole in the wall, restaurants you never heard of before you go to? How many new, local businesses you never heard of before opening and we all go and try them? Basically, that puts a bad look on everybody who's opening a business, that's not a major chain. Kind of, puts a bad taste in your mouth where you'd be like, I don't want to try that. They might be cooking people. But anywho, on August 5th, 2017, Joe Metheny was found unresponsive in his cell by some guards at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland. They pronounced him dead shortly afterwards, thus ending his horrifying saga. Now, Joe's story stands as one of the most grotesque and horrifying examples of unchecked human rage and depravity. His crimes were not just about murder. They were a grotesque manipulation of trust and humanity itself. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most monstrous individuals are those who seem unremarkable at first glance. So you guys be careful out there. Like I always tell y'all, back then it was a lot going on. A lot of serial killers was back in them days, but still be careful now. Might be some copycats, so it's just people in general is just crazy. It's kind of like we're going backwards in time. It's kind of like crazy people are now coming back up again. I love you guys for real. I'm going to catch you next time. Hope y'all have a great rest of your week. Thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos coming at you from It's Candy.